Welcome to the pre-application webinar for prospective applicants to the Comprehensive Centers Program 2026 Grant Competition for Regional Comprehensive Centers. My name is Dr. Michelle Daly. I serve as the group leader for the Comprehensive Centers Program in the Office of Program and Grantee Support Services within the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education at the U.S. Department of Education. I will be joined today by my colleagues, Erin Kells, who serves as the competition manager for the 2026 grant competition for the Comprehensive Centers Program, and Dr. Esley Newton, who serves as the co-competition manager for the 2026 grant competition for the Comprehensive Centers Program. The department is accepting applications through June 30th, 2026 for proposals to establish a comprehensive center under separate application notices and instructions through this competition. The department may make awards for a national comprehensive center, regional comprehensive centers, and 3 types of content centers. 1 emerging needs centers focusing on projects that are designed to strengthen core instruction through creating and supporting principals and other school leaders in implementing strategic staffing models, and at least 2 field-initiated centers with preference given to applicants submitting proposals to establish centers focused on evidence-based literacy instruction or strengthening core instruction through improving mathematics instruction, and 1 national center on improving literacy for students with disabilities. Each center type has its own absolute priority, competitive preference priorities, and application requirements. Because these are very distinct priorities, applicants must review the relevant application notice and instruction, or the ANI, for each center type they are interested in. If an applicant intends to compete for more than 1 comprehensive center, whether it's the national, regional, or content, they must submit a standalone application for each center they wish to operate. Applicants can view recorded webinars reviewing the specific requirement for each center type on the U.S. Department of Education YouTube channel. This webinar will provide information for prospective applicants for the Regional Comprehensive Center Awards. Excuse me. During the webinar, we will review details from the application notice and instruction, or the ANI, including priorities, program, application, and eligibility requirements, selection criteria, and definitions that apply to applications for the regional centers. Next, we will go over submission procedures and the application review procedures, and finally, we will close with a reminder of the competition resources available to applicants. As a result of attending this webinar, applicants should be able to identify the application requirements and expectations outlined in the application notice and instruction, or the ANI, including, for example, the priorities, application requirements, due dates, and review process for the 2026 Regional Center Grant Competition. Understand the process for submitting the grant application on grants.gov, including how to use the online submission platforms, submission methods, and required forms. The funding opportunity number associated with this competition is ED Grants GRANTS -050826-001. The assistance listing number, or ALN, for this program is 84.283B. The funding opportunity listed on grants.gov contains the full application notice and instruction for this competition. The application notice and instruction serves as the official announcement for this competition. Applicants should not rely solely on this webinar for information and guidance, should only use this presentation as a resource in conjunction with the official instructions in the ANI. Before applying for this grant, Interested applicants should thoroughly read the A&I, which includes the application package instruction available on grants.gov. Applicants may also review resources available on the applicant information page on the Comprehensive Centers Program website at ed.gov. To support clarity throughout the presentation, we have listed several commonly used acronyms used in this grant competition. Eligibility for this program is established in Section 203B of the Education Technical Assistance Act, or ETAA, of 2002. Applicants eligible for this grant include research organizations, institutions, agencies, institutions of higher education, or partnership among such entities, or individuals with a demonstrated ability or capacity to carry out the activities described in the A&I. A group of eligible entities may also apply as a consortium in accordance with the requirements in 34 CFR Part 75, Subpart C. Next, my colleague will provide an overview of the competition, including an overview of the Comprehensive Centers Program and relevant information about this grant competition.
The Comprehensive Center Network, or CC Network, is comprised of 3 types of comprehensive centers, including a National Comprehensive Center, the National Center, Regional Comprehensive Centers, Regional Centers, and Content Centers. Together, these content centers form a network to provide capacity building support to educational agencies and schools that improve instruction, expand opportunity, and close achievement gaps for all students, especially those with the greatest need. Each regional center provides intensive client-driven technical assistance aligned to state and local priorities and needs. These services help states select, implement, and sustain evidence-based programs, practices, and interventions in support of improved educator practice and student outcomes, especially in math and literacy. The National Center coordinates client-driven technical assistance to address REA, SEA, TEA, and LEA priorities related to evidence use and implementation of evidence-based practices to improve student outcomes nationally. Content centers provide technical assistance on a specific topic of national or regional importance reflected across state and local needs and priorities. All centers are expected to coordinate services, consult each other in providing services to clients, and the National Center helps to facilitate collaboration across centers and supports dissemination of products, resources, and information from the CC Network through the CC Network website, newsletters, and media. Funded by the Institute for Education Sciences, the nation's 10 regional educational laboratories partner with educators and policymakers nationwide. REL work is change-oriented, supporting meaningful local, regional, or state decisions about education, policies, programs, and practices designed to improve learner outcomes. RELs collaborate with state departments of education, school district leaders and classroom educators, and other education stakeholders to address their most pressing problems of education policy and practice. Our work includes high-quality applied research, training, coaching, and technical support to educators and policymakers, and sharing information about what works to improve learner outcomes. Learn more about their work in each REL region below. Under Section 203A2 of the ETAA, the department is required to establish at least one regional center for each of the 10 REL regions. Regional centers importantly partner with the RELs serving their region, working together to support the priorities and needs identified by their state clients. We'll discuss the collaboration more in reviewing the program requirements. In 2025, the Department and National Center launched a State Learning Agenda initiative to strengthen SEA capacity for strategic decisions related to education investments. What are learning agendas? Learning agendas are strategic multi-year plans to identify and address support priority policy questions using data and evidence. Learning agendas serve to identify high priority questions that matter most for improving programs, policies, and outcomes, guide research, evaluation, and data collection activities in a coordinated way, support evidence-based decision-making to improve effectiveness and efficiency, promote transparency and collaboration through engagement with internal and external stakeholders. Learning agendas provide SEAs with a structured approach that leverages existing systems to achieve key education priorities, assess whether student performance is on track, identify strengths and areas for improvement, and pinpoint resources to scale success and build capacity across state and local education agencies. A learning agenda complements an SEA's strategic plan and should be developed in tandem to ensure alignment. A strategic plan supports the vision and mission of the organization and typically describes agency priorities, strategies, and milestones. Learning agendas help states go deeper to align their priorities across programs and initiatives, and use data and evidence more strategically to make sure that their strategies result in better outcomes. Learning agendas also help states identify where they need to engage stakeholders and constituents meaningfully and better leverage federal technical assistance resources, including the regional centers, RELs, and other TA investments to support their work. The department envisions partnerships between SEAs, regional centers, and RELs to develop learning agendas that will serve as an important lever to provide high-quality technical assistance on state-identified high-priority topics. We intend the learning agenda development to be flexible to accommodate states that may already have learning agendas, those that do not but wish to develop one, or to accommodate states with other forms of articulated priorities, such as strategic plans that demonstrates the state's priorities, educational goals, and their commitments. For states that already have a learning agenda, regional centers and RELs will work with states to refine their agendas. For states that do not yet have a state learning agenda, RELs and regional centers will support states in developing a learning agenda, which will serve as a basis for both REL and regional center annual planning. The department is currently funding the development of learning agenda tools and processes that centers can use to support states in this activity. When states set their own agendas, RELs and regional centers can more effectively work together to advance work driven by state-defined priorities and promote coherence and strategic use of program resources. We will now review the funding opportunity description for this competition, starting with the priorities for applications for regional centers.
The regional center competition includes one absolute priority and one competitive preference priority. The absolute priority used in this competition is regional centers. The competitive preference priority is returning education to the states. Applicants should review the ANI for specific information on how to meet the absolute and competitive preference priorities for the regional center. For this competition, the absolute priority is regional centers. Applicants must directly address this priority to be considered for funding. Let's review the details for the absolute priority for regional centers. As a reminder, the full text of this absolute priority is included in the ANI. I will highlight here several aspects of the priority. This priority is for projects that propose to establish regional centers to provide intensive, client-driven technical assistance aligned to state and local priorities and needs related to selecting, implementing, and sustaining evidence-based programs, practices, and interventions in support of improved educator practice and student outcomes, especially in math and literacy. As a reminder, intensive capacity building services means assistance requiring a stable, ongoing relationship between the comprehensive center and its client and recipients, as well as periodic reflection, continuous feedback, and the use of evidence-based improvement strategies. Regional centers are an important component of the CC network as they serve as the main connection point for their state clients. This requires regional centers to effectively work together with other providers, including the RELs, to coordinate and align services to the needs within their regions. By working closely together, RELs and regional centers can ensure their collective resources have the most impact, reduce burden on their state clients, and avoid duplicating services. Regional centers also ensure their states within their region are networked into national support and resources through the national and content centers, connecting them to national expertise and opportunities to work with other states beyond their region. To ensure that federal funds are used responsibly and efficiently, regional centers must also develop cost-effective strategies to make their services available to as many state, regional, tribal, and local clients within their region who are in need of support as possible. The services provided must be designed to improve educational opportunities, educator practice, and student outcomes as described in Section 203F of the Education Technical Assistance Act of 2002, or the ETAA. Applicants are encouraged to familiarize themselves with this section of the ETAA, which describes the authorized activities of centers funded under this program and focuses on provided training, professional development, and technical assistance regarding, for example, the administration and implementation of programs under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, the ESCA, the use of scientifically valid teaching methods and assessment tools for use by teachers and administrators in the core academic subjects of mathematics, science, and reading or language arts, English language acquisition, and education technology, supporting improving academic achievement, closing achievement gaps, and encouraging and sustaining school improvement as described in Section 1116B of the ESCA. In compliance with the requirements of Section 203A2 of the ETAA, the department intends to establish through this priority 15 regional centers that will each serve a subset of states, with at least one regional center per each of the 10 rural regions. Applicants must specifically propose to establish and operate a regional center in one of the 15 geographic regions listed here and in the ANI.
There is one competitive preference priority in this competition for the regional centers. To ensure that proposals for the comprehensive centers are responsive to the needs of the states they serve, the department has included competitive preference priority 1, returning education to the states. In this competition, the department will award additional CPPs, to projects that will be carried out by state educational agencies, tribal education agencies, entities identified, designate, or endorsed by a governor or chief state education official or a consortia of such entities. This means that the applicant for the award must meet at least one of these criteria to qualify for the CPP. Any application that the department determines meets one or more of these 4 criteria will be awarded the competitive preference points. Applicants will not be awarded more points for meeting more of the criteria. To meet the criterion for entities identified, designate, or endorsed by a governor or chief state education official, applicants must include specific evidence that a governor or chief state official has identified, designated, or endorsed the project. Specific evidence could include a letter of endorsement, an official letterhead, signed by the governor or chief state education officer, and should be included with the application at the time of submission. The letter should clearly indicate that the state supports the project. States may choose to endorse more than one proposal that they believe would meet their needs. Applicants need at least one state endorsement to qualify under this criterion. Please note that if the department is unable to clearly identify any identification, designation, or endorsement by governor or chief state education official, the department may determine that the application does not meet this priority. Applicants should carefully review the ANI for detailed guidance on addressing the absolute and competitive preference priorities. Next, we will review the program requirements that apply to regional center grant competitions.
The program requirements are established in the Comprehensive Centers Program Final Priorities, Requirements, and Definitions published in the Federal Register on May 8, 2026. Program requirements generally describe requirements of grantees under this program. They are addressed after grant awards and are further detailed in a cooperative agreement between the grantee and the department. There are 5 general program requirements that apply to all centers and 3 that only apply to regional centers. Applicants should be aware of the program requirements and should consider how they would meet these requirements if they receive an award. The first 5 program requirements apply to all centers. For these program requirements, for all centers, grantees must develop an annual service plan that clearly reflects state-identified needs and priorities. Grantees will be required to demonstrate how their services reflect state-identified needs and leadership priorities for assistance, and how the plans prioritize students and communities with the greatest needs, consistent with requirements in the ETAA. Plans must include high leverage problems, client needs, proposed capacity building services, short, mid, and long-term outcomes, responsible personnel, key partners, milestones, outputs, dissemination approaches, and fidelity measures. For definitions of these terms, please see the definitions section of the ANI. Centers must design and implement capacity building services that are streamlined, responsive, and tailored to the specific state and local needs. Centers must develop these services in partnership with beneficiaries to make sure they respond to needs and produce desired outcomes. Centers must demonstrate that clients were actively engaged in defining proposed services. Centers must secure and document client and partner commitments to the annual service plans. Centers must implement a performance management and evaluation system that integrates continuous improvement to promote effective achievement of client outcomes. High-quality performance management systems will include methods to measure and monitor progress towards agreed-upon outcomes, outputs, and milestones, and to measure the reach, use, and impact of the services being delivered to ensure capacity-building services are implemented as intended, reaching intended clients and recipients and achieving desired results. Centers must also periodically assess client satisfaction as a leading indicator and monitor changes in client context that may impact project success. All important factors in monitoring fidelity of implementation. Additionally, the grantee must also report on defined program performance measures, which are listed in the ANI. Finally, all centers are required to participate in the department's national evaluation of the Comprehensive Centers Program, which is required under Section 204 of the ETAA. In addition to the program requirements for all centers, there are 5 additional program requirements specific to regional centers. The next slides provide an abbreviated overview of these program requirements. First, regional centers must actively coordinate and collaborate with the RELs serving their region to implement technical assistance in response to needs and priorities of shared clients. Coordination must include annual joint planning and establishment of a joint advisory board that meets the requirement under the ETAA Section 203G, 20 U.S.C. 9602. The Joint Advisory Board must be designed to inform and improve service delivery across both programs while reducing burden on the state agencies. To facilitate joint planning, regional centers should partner with the REL serving their region with support from the National Center as needed to work with each state in the region to develop or refine as appropriate and implement a multi-year state learning agenda, and to identify state needs and set priorities for evidence building and educational program implementation. The center would then develop the annual service plan from the priorities established by states in their learning agendas, as well as other relevant feedback from stakeholders, including chief state school officers and other SEA leaders, TEAs, LEAs, educators, students, and parents, and their advisory boards. The feedback is to reflect the most pressing needs of all states and, to the extent practicable, of LEAs within the region to be served. The next program requirement for regional centers emphasizes the importance of a client-driven process for selecting subject matter expertise to support effective capacity building services. Clients should have choice over the providers they work with and to be provided with options to determine what best meets their needs. Regional centers will be required to work in partnership with clients to identify and select subject matter expertise for annual service plan projects. This includes leveraging the National Center cadre of subject matter experts to evaluate options and procure high-quality and cost-efficient expertise from a broad range of sources. Through this approach, clients will be supported in determining their specific expertise needs and empower them to select the experts best suited for each project, including expertise beyond the immediate staff of the center. It will also expand the access to specialized expertise more broadly across the CC network. Once awarded, the center must establish and provide the department copies of partnership agreements with the RELs in the region that the center serves, the National Center, and as appropriate, other department-funded technical assistance providers the center may work with to support clients in the region. Finally, based on the complex and relationship-driven nature of the work of the comprehensive centers, grantees are required to demonstrate dedicated leadership with the capacity to effectively and capably manage all aspects of the center's operations. Once awarded, it is required for a regional center grantee to be located in the region the center serves, and the director and key personnel must be able to provide on-site services. This may include having a physical office location in the region or key personnel, including the project director who are based in the region. The project director must be either at a minimum of 0.75 FTE, or there must be 2 co-project directors at a minimum of 1.0 FTE collectively. This requirement is further developed in the application requirements. As a reminder, these are program requirements that grantee must meet post-award. Applicants should consider how they will meet these requirements if awarded a regional center grant. Please refer to the ANI for a comprehensive text of the program requirements for regional centers. We will now review the application requirements for proposals for regional centers. These are requirements that applicants must address in their application for a regional center grant award.
The application requirements are established in the Comprehensive Centers Program, Final Priorities, Requirements, and Definitions, published on grants.gov on May 8, 2026. Application requirements describe requirements of applicants under this program. They must be addressed in the grant application. There are some general application requirements that apply to all centers, and other application requirements only apply to regional centers. Applicants should carefully review the application requirements in the ANI and make sure their application narrative addresses each application requirement. The application requirements correspond to the selection criteria that will be used to evaluate your proposal. There are 8 general application requirements for all centers. Please refer to the ANI for the comprehensive description of each application requirement. Applicants must clearly describe their approach to capacity building services, supported by a logic model, evidence base, and well-defined strategies. The application should include evidence of the applicant's ability to provide effective services, including examples from past experience, demonstrated expertise of key personnel on the project, the expected impact of the center on SEAs, REAs, TEAs, LEAs, and schools, how the impact will be measured, and how services will address the needs of students with the greatest needs, as defined in the ETAA. Applicants must outline a process for working in partnership with CC clients to identify the most urgent educational challenges. This process must ensure challenges they address in their plans are supported by data and evidence and reflect state and local priorities. Applicants must also describe how they will measure and monitor client progress in addressing identified challenges. This includes how the applicant will use data and evidence to assess outcomes across universal, targeted, and intensive capacity building services. Additionally, applicants must show strong expertise in delivering high-quality technical assistance, including knowledge of adult learning principles, coaching models, and implementation science. Applicants must provide a budget narrative explaining the estimated costs for intensive, targeted, and universal capacity building services. The narrative must address how the applicant will promote cost effectiveness, showing alignment between proposed costs and market expectations for similar services. Applicants must describe the proposed leadership structure for the center. The structure must demonstrate the organization's ability to effectively manage all aspects of the project, including strategic oversight, coordination, and compliance with program requirements. The leadership approach must show organizational capacity to assess, manage, and strategically utilize program resources to meet the needs of the grant. This aligns to the program requirement for project leadership. And 7, applicants must set aside 5% of the annual grant award to support emerging needs that are consistent with project outcomes. This set aside may be a single line item or may be distributed across budget categories. Applicants should describe in the budget narrative how they have addressed this requirement. The purpose is to ensure centers have the flexibility to respond to new, high-priority emerging needs identified by states, clients, or the department, in addition to or after the center has established its annual service plan. Additional information will be provided post-award. Finally, applicants must propose a clear, intensive capacity building services, including identification of intended beneficiaries based on available data for specific regions, and details on how the center will ensure proposed capacity building services are driven by client needs and co-developed with client input. Please refer to the ANI for the full description of all application requirements.
Now that we've reviewed the requirements for what each application should include, let's review the criteria that peer reviewers will use to evaluate and score each application. The selection criteria for this competition are described in the ANI. There are 3 overall selection criteria, and within each sub-criteria that are scored individually. The 3 selection criteria are 1, significance, 2, quality of project design, and 3, quality of the management plan. Applicants should primarily address the selection criteria in their application narrative. However, some selection criteria, such as the budget narrative or qualifications of key personnel, may be supported by information in the other attachments to the application. The maximum possible score for addressing all selection criteria is 100 points for regional centers. The maximum score for each criterion is included in parentheses following the title of the specific selection criteria. Each criterion also includes the factors that reviewers will consider in determining the extent to which an applicant meets the criterion. The criteria are defined for each center. We will provide an abbreviated overview of the criteria here. For the complete definitions of each criteria, please reference the ANI. In determining the overall quality of the significance of the proposed project for a regional center, the Secretary considers the following factors: the data presented including a comparison to local, state, regional, national, or international data that demonstrates the issue, challenge, or opportunity to be addressed by the proposed project. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 5 points. 2, the extent to which the proposed project is likely to build local, state, regional, or national capacity to provide, improve, sustain, or expand training or services that address the needs of underserved populations. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 15 points. For the next selection criteria, overall quality of the project design of the proposed project, 6 factors will be considered. The department encourages applicants to review the requirements in Section 203D, E, and F of the ETAA in responding to this criterion. The factors are: 1, the extent to which goals, objectives, and outcomes to be achieved by the proposed project are clearly specified, measurable, and ambitious, yet achievable within the project period and align with the purpose of the grant program. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 5 points. 2, the adequacy of plans for ensuring the use of quantitative and qualitative data, including meaningful community member and partner input to inform continuous improvement in the operation of the proposed project. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 10 points. 3, the extent to which the training or professional development services to be provided by the proposed project are of sufficient quality, intensity, and duration to build recipient and project capacity in ways that lead to improvements in practice among the recipients of those services. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 5 points. 4, the extent to which the proposed project will include coordination with other federal investments, as well as appropriate agencies and organizations providing similar services to the target population. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 5 points. The final subcriteria for quality of the project design are: 4, the extent to which the proposed project is supported by the target population that it is intended to serve. 5, the quality of the logic model or other conceptual framework underlying the proposed project, including how inputs are related to outcomes. The maximum score for each of these subcriterion is 5 points. The next selection criteria is the quality of the management plan. The feasibility of the management plan to achieve project objectives and goals on time and within budget, including clearly defined responsibilities, timelines, and milestones for accomplishing project tasks. And the minimum score for this subcriterion is 10 points. 2, the extent to which the time commitments of the project director and the principal investigator and other key project personnel are appropriate and adequate to meet the objectives of the proposed project. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 15 points. Additionally, the quality of the management plan will be assessed on 3, the extent to which the key personnel in the project, when hired, have the qualifications required for the proposed project, including formal training or work experience in fields related to the objectives of the project and represent or have lived experiences of the target population. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 10 points. 4, and finally, the extent to which the budget is adequate to support the proposed project and the costs are reasonable in relation to the objectives, design, and potential significance of the proposed project. The maximum score for this subcriterion is 5 points.
Next, we will discuss the process the department will use to evaluate applications for the Comprehensive Center's grant competition. Applications for this competition are due 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on June 30th, 2026. Once applications are received, the department will first conduct an eligibility review. The review is a process to carefully screen applications to ensure they meet all the eligibility requirements outlined in the notice. This includes verifying that the application is eligible to apply for an award under this program. All required forms are included in the application and verifying that the application clearly addresses the absolute priority. If an application is deemed ineligible, an applicant will be notified and the application will not be reviewed and scored. All applications that meet eligibility for the program will proceed to peer review. The peer review is an objective process where applications are reviewed and scored by non-federal panel of peers. Panels are comprised of peer reviewers with professional experience and expertise relevant to the Comprehensive Centers program. Each reviewer takes the time to individually read, evaluate, and score their assigned applications based on the selection criteria listed in the application notice and instructions. The panel then engages in a comprehensive discussion about the application and their respective score and comments. The reviewer scores and comments are then finalized and individual scores are averaged to create an overall application score. Because the applications are scored on each individual selection criteria, not responding to a specific criteria could negatively impact the applicant's score. Based on the peer review, the department prepares a rank order list from the overall application scores after applying any competitive preference points. Finally, prior to making final awards, the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, in consultation with the Office of General Counsel and other offices as appropriate, will develop funding recommendations and identify any special terms and conditions that may be needed. Following the vetting of the highest rated applications, the competition manager will prepare and submit a funding slate to the Secretary for review and approval. The department intends to create 19 separate funding slates, one for the National Center, one for each regional center, and one for each type of content center. The department anticipates funding a single award for each funding slate. If the department decides to make new awards this fiscal year, award decisions will be announced in September 2026, and funded and unfunded applicants will be notified. Now that we have reviewed the requirements of what each application should include and how the application will be evaluated, we will spend some time reviewing the application instruction and submission procedures. The application instruction linked here can be found on grants.gov. These instructions provide information about the application submission procedures and details for each part of the application package and the required forms that the applicant will use to submit information for their application. A complete application package consists of several documents the applicant will be required to submit in the application. As a resource, an application checklist is included in the ANI and linked in grants.gov. The application checklist helps to ensure that all required forms, attachments, certification, narratives, and other submission components are completed before submitting your application. The checklist serves as a quality control resource, helping an applicant verify that all required forms have been completed during the application development process and confirm completion prior to submitting your application to avoid an incomplete submission. Applicants are strongly encouraged to use the application checklist as you develop your application and as a final check prior to submission to verify the components of all required documentations. Failure to include required application components may result in the application being deemed incomplete or ineligible for review. The standard document section includes the application for federal assistance, or SF 424, and the Ed supplemental information for SF 424. These forms require basic identifying information about the applicant and the application. Applicants must provide all requested information, which includes name, address, email address, and UEI. Applicants are advised to complete the application for federal assistance or Form SF-424 first, because grants.gov will automatically insert the correct assistance listing number and program name automatically wherever needed on other forms. Applicants should not attach any narrative, supporting files, are application components to the standard form SF-424. Although this form accepts attachments, the department will only review files attached in accordance with the instruction provided within the application. The final form in the standard document section is the Ed Grant application form for project objectives and performance measures information. This form collects project objectives and quantitative and/or qualitative program and project-specific performance measures at the time of the application submission. The budget information section includes the budget non-construction program, Ed Form 524 form. This part of the application should contain information about the federal funding you are requesting. It is required for applicants to provide all the budget information requested for each year of the project to be considered for federal funding. Specific instruction for completing the budget forms are provided within this package. The next form is the Ed Abstract form. This form should be used to create a brief, no longer than 2 pages, program abstract. The abstract is a summary that provides reviewers a high-level overview of your proposed projects. It is used to understand the purpose, scope, target population, activities, and the projected outcomes outlined in your proposal. And it will be made public if the proposal is successful. The project narrative section includes the application narrative, project narrative attachment form, which is the primary component of your application. This section also includes a table of contents. In developing the application, applicants are highly encouraged to write concise and streamlined applications describing their proposal for the project. The department recommends applicants limit their application narrative to the equivalent of no more than 75 pages. To promote fairness and efficiency, the department will instruct reviewers to only read and score the first 75 pages of the application narrative. Applications that exceeds this page limit will still be reviewed, but reviewers will only score information in the first 75 pages of the narrative. The budget narrative section includes a budget narrative attachment form for an applicant to provide a detailed explanation and justification of requested federal funds, providing a justification of how the money requested for each budget year item will be spent. Applicants should include sufficient details to enable reviewers to understand how requested funds will be spent, how much will be expended, and the relationship between the requested funds and project activities and outcomes in their budget narrative. The next section of the checklist are other attachment forms and assurances and certifications. The other attachment forms, which applicants will use to provide supplemental information for your application. The final section is the assurance and certification, which includes the disclosure of lobbying activities or standard form LLL and the grants.gov lobbying form. To be certain to complete all required assurances and certification in grants.gov and include all required information in the appropriate place on each form. The assurances and certification required for this application are the disclosure of lobbying activities, or SFLLL form, and the grants.gov lobbying form, certification regarding lobbying. The ANI and grants.gov provides complete description of each form. Please refer to the application package instruction for the complete list of all required forms.
The project narrative is the primary component of your application. The narrative should be attached to your application as a single searchable PDF document to the project narrative attachment form in accordance with the instructions found on grants.gov. The project narrative responds to the priorities, application requirements, and selection criteria found in the ANI. It should describe the applicant's proposed approach to establishing and operating a regional center and how it intends to meet the requirements to operate the center according to the application requirements. Applications should ensure they have addressed each of the criteria in their narrative that will be used to evaluate their proposal. Some applicants may choose to organize their narrative by the selection criteria to help reviewers navigate and locate the relevant information to evaluate each criterion. Ensure to focus on what each criterion is asking and respond to those specific requests. Be specific and evidence-based in your responses as you address each sub-criterion. Be mindful that reviewers can only score what is written and supported in your narrative. Make your narrative clear and provide accessible evidence aligned to address each criterion. The project narrative also includes the table of contents, which illustrates where and how the important sections of your proposal are organized. Consider using a clear and logical organization of your application so that peer reviewers can easily understand your proposed approach and locate key information they will need to evaluate your proposal. All applicants must use the Ed Budget Information Non-Construction Programs Ed Form 524 to propose a budget for each year of your project. The budget should break down expenses into federal budget categories such as personnel, which will cover salaries and wages, fringe benefits, which would be employer-paid benefits for project personnel such as health insurance, retirement contributions, and others. Travel, which would include travel expenses necessary to carry out project activities. Equipment, which are tangible, non-expendable personal property with a useful life of more than 1 year and a per unit acquisition cost, that of the capitalization level established, or $10,000 or more. Supplies, which are tangible, expendable personal property that are consumable expendables that are lower cost items needed for project operations. Contractual expenses, which would be costs for consultants, subcontractors, or partner organizations who will provide services such as subject matter expertise, evaluation support, and other, which would include allowable costs not captured in the above categories. Total direct costs are the sum of allowable costs tied to project implementation, and those will need to be included as well. Please note in line 10 of the Ed 524B budget form, applicants should indicate the applicant's approved indirect cost rate per 34 CFR sections 75.560 through 75.564. If an applicant does not have an approved indirect cost rate agreement with a cognizant federal agency, the applicant may use the de minimis rate of up to 15%. If 2 or more applicants for a regional center receive the same total scores, the secretary will select for funding among tied applications as appropriate the applicant that has the lower effective indirect cost rate as indicated on this form in Section A. For more information, please visit the Department's Office of Finance and Operations Indirect Cost Division website linked on this slide.
The budget narrative provides an opportunity for the applicant to explain the nature and amount of the proposed expenditures for the project. Applicants should provide sufficient details to enable reviewers and project staff to understand how requested funds will be used, how much will be expended, and the relationship between the requested funds and the project activity and outcomes. This section requires an itemized budget breakdown of each project year and a basis for estimating the cost of personnel, salaries, benefits, project staff travel, materials and supplies, consultants and subcontractors, indirect cost, and any other project expenditures. If you're requesting a reimbursement for indirect costs on line 10, please specify the estimated amount of the base to which the indirect cost is applied and the total indirect expense. Please indicate which costs are included and which costs are excluded from the base to which the indirect cost rate is applied. The range for the initial project year award for the regional centers is $1 million to $5,265,052. Funding for a subsequent budget period is contingent on appropriation levels. Specific estimated of funding levels, as well as the estimated range of awards for each center are in each center's application notice and instructions. Applicants should not request funding above the estimated maximums in the application notice for any project period. Please note that the department is not bound to any estimates in the ANI. The department anticipates making 15 awards to regional centers with 1 grant funded per region. Estimated amounts for each regional center award are provided in the ANI. The department is not bound to any estimates. In setting funding levels, the department considered the factors identified in Section 203A, 2B of the ETAA, as well as any expected minimum funding levels needed to provide services and maintain the center. Applicants should propose a budget that is sufficient to meet the needs of the project. However, the department will not make any award exceeding the maximum amount specific to each center for a single budget period of 12 months.
To apply for this competition, applicants must submit the application electronically through grants.gov and follow the common instructions for applicants to Department of Education discretionary grant programs, which contain requirements and information on how to submit an application. Workspace is an application system used for federal grants. Applicants must use grants.gov Workspace to apply. In Workspace, a grant team may work simultaneously to access and edit different forms within the application. Forms can be completed online or offline. In Workspace, you will be able to view your grant application, access forms, attachments, form status, activity, and actions, among others. For additional support, the Workspace website offers a variety of resources and videos to help you navigate the application and features. Several particularly helpful resources include Get started on your Workspace application, resources to help you set up your workspace, and a video on how to create a workspace. Use links provided on this slide to access the Workspace resources. Applicants should review the common instructions for applicants to the Department of Education discretionary grant programs published in the Federal Register on December 7, 2022. Please see this link on the slide below. To apply, you must first be registered in 2 systems, sam.gov and grants.gov. If you're already registered, make sure your registration is active and up to date. The grants.gov registration involves several steps, including registration on sam.gov. You may begin working on your application while completing the registration process, but you cannot apply until all registration steps are complete. For more information on the registration processes, see the ANI for details. To submit your application successfully, you must include your Unique Entity Identifier, or UEI number, on your application. This number should match the one that is used by you or someone in your organization when registering as an Authorized Organization Representative, AOR, on grants.gov. The UEI number is typically the same number used when your organization registered with the System for Award Management, SAM, on sam.gov. If you do not enter the same UEI number on your application as the UEI you registered with on grants.gov, your application will be rejected. Please see the related instructions in this application package. Here are a few grants.gov submission resources and submission tips that you may find helpful. Be sure to review the grants.gov submission procedures and tips for applicants section in your application instructions, as well as the grants.gov applicant FAQs. Also, be sure you have the correct version of Adobe Acrobat downloaded in order to read grants.gov application packages. Finally, be sure to save your work frequently in Workspace so you don't lose any important changes. All application documents must be submitted as PDF files. When attaching files, applicants should limit the size of their file names. We recommend your file names be less than 50 characters and not use any special characters. Once an application is submitted, it cannot be undone. However, applicants may resubmit an application until the closing date and time. Applicants are encouraged to download and save a copy of their submitted application. You should receive confirmation on successful submission of your application. If you encounter error messages, please visit grants.gov, link to this slide, for steps explaining common error messages that applicants may encounter while completing or submitting an application package.
Here are a few helpful reminders. First, all substantive project-related information must be contained in the project narrative form and budget narrative form sections. These are the forms that peers will review and score. Be sure to label each file with the appendix name, for example, Appendix B, Resumes, and attach it to the Other Attachments form. The Other Attachments form can support up to 5 attachments. The list of required attachments can be found in the application package. All documents should be submitted in portable document format, or PDF. Grants.gov does not properly process special characters, so do not use colons or backslashes when naming your files. Also, when you submit your application electronically, you must upload any narrative sections and all other attachments to your application as files in PDF format. The department recommends applicants submit all documents as read-only, flattened PDFs, meaning any fillable PDF files must be saved and submitted as non-fillable PDF files and not as interactive or fillable PDF files, to better ensure applications are processed in a more timely, accurate, and efficient manner. If you upload a file type other than PDF, or if you submit a password-protected file, the department will be unable to review that material. Please note that this will likely result in your application not being scored for funding. The department will not convert material from other formats to PDF. Be sure to verify the submission of your application by signing in to the Track My Application feature in grants.gov. Do not rely solely on email to confirm that your application has been received and validated. You will need to enter your grants.gov tracking number in the field to see the status. The application status should state validated. A reminder that the date and time received should be earlier than 11:59 p.m. on June 30th, 2026. We recognize that technical problems may occur. So if you experience technical problems, you may contact the grants.gov support desk. If your application is successful, we notify your U.S. representatives and U.S. senators and send you a grant award notification, or GAN. We may also send you an email containing a link to access an electronic version of your GAN or notify you informally. If your application is not evaluated or not selected for funding, we will notify you. We include the regulations outlining the terms and conditions of an award to include these and other specific conditions in the GAN. The GAN also incorporates your approved application as part of your binding commitments under the grant. If the department decides to make new awards this fiscal year, award decisions will be announced in September 2026, and funding and unfunded applications will be notified.
This concludes our review of the application notice for instruction for regional centers. We will conclude with several reminders of key resources to assist applicants in their grant process. Links to the most important websites for the competition resources. The ANI, published on grants.gov, is the official notice inviting applications for the 2026 grant competition. The ANI includes the requirements, priorities, and other relevant details for this grant competition. The ANI includes instruction for applicants, including the application submission procedures, application details, and what to do if you're having submission challenges. The Comprehensive Centers Program website has additional information and resources, including links to this webinar. The department intends to publish a frequently asked question, FAQ, on the program website to address applicants' questions. We will update the FAQ resource periodically as we receive additional questions. Questions regarding this competition should be submitted via email at oese.comprehensivecenters@ed.gov. Please find additional resources, including specific pre-application webinars for each type of comprehensive center on the department program website. For individuals with disabilities, upon request, the department will provide individuals with the ANI in an accessible format. Please submit your request to OESC comprehensivecenters@ed.gov. The deadline for transmittal of applications in this competition is 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on June 30th, 2026. Applicants can submit their notice of intent to apply to OESC Comprehensive Centers at ed.gov by May 29, 2026. Applicants should make sure to register on SAMS.gov and grants.gov well prior to submitting their application and should carefully review the ANI. Please submit any additional questions about this competition via email to oese.comprehensivecenters@ed.gov. For more information about the Comprehensive Centers program or this competition, visit the Comprehensive Centers website on ed.gov, which is linked in this presentation. On behalf of the U.S. Department of Education, thank you for participating in today's pre-application webinar for prospective applicants in 2026 Comprehensive Centers Grant Competition.